I'm seeing my mic. You're seeing that. We all agree that
yes.
there's a level. Talk
Yes.
again. Okay.
Check. I never get to do my checks. I'm on the other side of this.
You're a producer. You're supposed to get to do all this stuff. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah. All right.
Welcome to Inside Look. I'm Jeff Lyons, joined today by one of our 14 news producers, Kara Mattingly. Thanks for being on Inside Look, Kara.
Thanks for having me.
You have the distinction of being one of our first behind-the-curtain wizards to actually come on here and talk a little bit about your magic and your craft to get these shows on the air day after day after day. Are you willing to
Yes.
Discuss a little bit of that?
Let's talk.
Okay.
There's a lot.
Yeah, there is a lot of talk and a lot of preparation that goes into it. But before we get to that, we have a lot in common, as it turns out. We both went to the same high school. We both went to Wrights.
Yeah.
I think you went to Perry Heights.
Perry Heights.
We're West Siders.
Terrace,
and West
everything,
Terrace.
yeah.
It wasn't consolidated when I was there. I'm trying.
Yeah.
I think we were about 35 years apart at Wrights, maybe more than that.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so it's always kind of cool to me anyway, because it seems like the West Side, Wrights High School in particular, I guess modern day to some degree, are always sort of overrepresented on the staff here. You have a lot of people that went to one of those two schools.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just because the station's in the backyard or what. What made you come up here?
Well, I mean, I spent my childhood watching 14, so like on the West Side over there. And I that's, I grew up watching you. I grew up watching Dan Katz and Byron. And I always make sure, like, if I ever get annoyed at Byron, I'm like, hey, I watched you whenever I was growing up, And it makes him, he's like,
that always brings him right down.
Yes,
right
does.
down.
Yes,
It's
it
always
does.
a great morale booster when we hear that. That or, my grandparents love watching you today.
Yes,
and they
yes.
do, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Actually, I will say that when I was in high school, I was a drum major at Wrights, and you were doing Battle of the Bands at that
Yes,
point,
I
and
remember that.
We won that year, my senior year, and you interviewed me. It's like full circle right now.
Wow. I do not, I'm sorry, I
You
do
have
not
interviewed
remember
a lot of
that.
people.
Yeah. So did we come out to the Wrights and do that, or
Yeah.
did you come up here?
No, it was at the Friday night football game. Yeah.
I think I remember that.
Yeah.
We didn't fly in on the chopper, though, did we?
No,
No.
that was, I think we didn't have that.
What year was this?
That was 07, 06, I think.
06. Yeah, we were pretty much banned after 9/11. We couldn't go anywhere on that
yeah.
chopper. So
Yeah.
okay, well that's been a while back. Was
It has
Mr.
been a while.
Keith
It
your
has been a while.
director? No,
Yes.
it
yeah,
was.
It was. Yeah.
Well, see,
You
so
got
I
it.
I
You
have
got it.
some of it up there. Not
Yeah.
not enough of it apparently. So then what was?
Well, I was not as outgoing as I was.
Well,
am
so
now,
after I interviewed you, then it just took off and you wound up here.
Yes,
Is that how it
was
basically
you.
went?
You started it all.
Straight line.
Yeah.
So you were a drum major. Does that mean you were the one up on the
Yeah,
scaffold?
I was the one directing
conducting?
everybody out there. Yeah.
Okay. So you were born to lead, right?
I don't know about that, but
Why? Shoot, if you could lead a 100-piece high school band, you could
Yeah.
certainly run a news
It's
department.
definitely nerve-wracking, and if anything goes wrong, it's the drum major's got to step up and be like, okay, yeah, that was me.
It's
I did
on
that,
me.
and that's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm doing here, what I have to do here too. So.
Yeah, except you
Yeah.
don't have a big baton that you could
No.
hit a few people over the
I
head
don't
with
have
if you
that.
needed to. So, what did you play an instrument too?
Saxophone.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
of them.
what's the normal trajectory for a drum major then in the high school band? Like, do they typically come from the woodwinds, or would it be more percussion, or?
Just anyone, I guess. Like anybody who wants to do it can, try out and go to the classes and learn. And like my sister before me, she was 3 years before me, so she was a drum major. So like I kind of saw her doing it, and I'm like, I want to do that too.
A legacy play.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
we were both drum majors at Wrights, and that's just it's usually your people who are like love music, and they and pretty much I did all band in high school. That's all I did.
Cool. I was a choir guy. I didn't have the skill to do anything in the band, and plus the band was more. It was different back then.
Yes.
I mean, they basically made a big R on the field,
Yeah.
spelled it out, and that was it. You didn't have to do all the
It's
stuff that they
competitive
do
now.
today. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay. So Wrights, and then 14. Where was in the middle? Where'd you go to school?
I went to Ball State University. I didn't really know that I wanted to get into news when I went there.
Did you go to music school?
No,
No, okay.
I just went to Ball State just because it was a great school, and it
Still
seemed-
is.
It seemed like just a good fit. And but I'd always liked watching the news and everything when I was younger, and just like just always curious about what's going on and everything. And I never really wanted to. Oh, I never wanted to be in front of the camera. No, never. But I just kind of found the telecommunication department at Ball State through classes and stuff. And like that was, I took different kinds of classes in the TCOM area, and just the news part is what I liked.
Yeah. And plus they produce a daily newscast there,
Yes,
right? So were you
Newsly,
involved with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Not like every year I was there, but yes, by the time you get through there, everybody's pretty much involved in that. And that's great, because that's what kind of, sets us all up.
So you have to anchor too? Did they make everybody do everything?
Yes. And they, we would rotate through reporting, anchoring, producing. And I only wanted to do the producing, but I had to get on camera a little bit. And they would always try to get people to be the meteorologist, and nobody ever wanted to do it.
Yeah.
It's too hard.
I know.
It's hard.
It's job
It's hard stuff, guys.
Job
It's hard
security
stuff.
for the old geezers here.
Yeah.
Nobody wants this job. So then you came here. This is your first gig, right?
Yes.
Out of school.
Straight out of college, I came here. I was on the digital team for about 2 years.
Okay.
And I already knew I wanted to be a producer, and kind of, because producers are like the people behind the scenes putting the puzzle together. You
Right.
know? And that's like, that's what I like, the details and the whole big picture of what we're doing here. So that's where I knew I wanted to go. But I worked on the web for a while, and that's great too. They do good work too. And but then, the opening happened on Sunrise.
So that's what I want you to talk about.
Okay.
It's kind of this puzzle business, because
Yeah.
I think we all have a different idea of what producers do. Kind of
Yes,
like people have
yes.
different ideas of what I do.
Yes.
Or any other job. You know how that is.
Mm-hmm.
And but producer is one of those jobs. I thought there's no way I would ever do that. I would never want to do that. I never sought that one out.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know about producers until my first day on the air in Terre Haute.
Yeah.
And I went out there, and this guy came out. He was wearing suspenders. He's about 3 years older than me, but he was kind of had that attitude. And he said, "Mr. Weather, 3 minutes, keep it moving," and slammed the door and went in the control room. I'm like, "Who is that?" "That's the producer." Yeah. And so he had a real, kind of an ironclad grip. But there's so much more to it than just telling people, well, you got 3 minutes, you got 2 minutes. So when you walk in every day, is it basically a blank slate, or is stuff left for you, or what's your walk us through a day?
Yeah, well, when you walk in, it's you sit down, you figure out what's happening through email, social media, what's happening nationally, all of that stuff. You got to kind of be on the lookout for any kind of thing story-wise at all times, really, but yeah, it is a blank slate. The newscast, the system that we use, it's a blank slate. There's nothing in it. Like, we know we have to go to weather this many times and do this, but the rest of the news that we do on a daily basis is just filled in when we get in.
So people that are listening to us now, or maybe watching us here on the YouTube version of it, that watch the news or see the news on a daily basis, how much time are you talking about that you have to fill? Like we'll say, we'll use the 5 o'clock news as an example, 5 or 6. How many minutes do you have to just come up with out of thin air?
It's usually around like 15, 17, 16 minutes in there around, because that's including breaks, and the weather hits are already in there too.
Right.
So that's just like the news part of it. And that's a lot, because a lot of people, you would think like, oh, that's not that long of a time. But when you're breaking it down into 30, 20-second stories, it's a lot.
It's a lot
it gets
of time
to be a lot,
fill.
yeah.
So, and of course, the ideal, I suppose, and the way it started out back in the old days was it would be all local content, because you didn't have that much time to fill to begin with. There was 1 or 2 newscasts. Now we have many.
Yeah.
And we have, reporters who have assignments, go out and stuff. But sometimes what comes back in the door isn't always what you were expecting when they went out, right?
Yes.
So how do you navigate that one?
It is ever changing. If we're producing the 5 o'clock newscast, things change all the way up to 5:30 when the newscast ends. There are a lot of things. Those stories that are ever changing. You got to be willing to change at all times. If we lose a story, a reporter it turns out to not be anything, we'll switch gears, try to find something else to get the reporter moving on something else, and and it's just it's constant, ever changing.
How much are you involved in when the reporters go out the door? There's a morning editorial meeting and then there's an afternoon one. I think I'm getting you out of this one by having you in our little clubhouse back here. So, but the morning one really sets sort of the vision for the day, barring any breaking news or something wild. Are you involved with that one, or I guess not because, or yes?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in there, and because we have an assignment manager, he is the one who kind of is making sure that we do have all of our bases covered, and that's kind of what he does throughout the whole day, making sure the reporters are going here. Like, the producers are the ones breaking down the stories that we have and actually writing them and putting, the elements that we have with it, whether it's video or pictures or, but like the reporters make sure they talk to us during the day when they're out to make sure that we are aware of what they're getting.
And I think people take for granted, like they just flip it on. There's Robinson Miles and Jamie French. They just think they're making this stuff up as they go. They just happen to know there was a fire at 5th and Elm and, 3 were hurt and the fire department came. But so often that is not minutes, sometimes hours of detail checking by you, right? I mean, and that's your responsibility that we're factually accurate, that we're not going to get a lawsuit, that it's unbiased. All these things, that's a lot of pressure.
Yes.
So why did you seek this out? You could have been a drum major.
Could have been.
It just seems like a lot of hassle,
It is, but I don't know. Like, I have told people this before, and I don't know if my past teachers want to hear this, but whenever you would do like an assignment for school, procrastinate on a paper or something, I always felt like I would felt like I would pull a really great paper out of thin air very quickly.
Because you had the deadline.
Yes, because it's the deadline. And that's you have to, as a producer, you have to be very willing and able to work under pressure like that. And I don't know, I like that. I like, it's, I don't know, just the pressure of that deadline. And
it absolutely forces you. You got to come up with something, because the show's going to roll whether we have anything or not. Now, occasionally, you'll get my ear. She talks to me through an IFB, so I can hear you and the anchors can hear you. Can you go a little long on weather today? Something falls through, and typically we can. We can, because we're ad lib. But everything else, everything's scripted, is on you, right? Yeah. And then if, something changes or we learn, oh, whoops, that source isn't right, then you have to go in and
change it.
Yeah. I mean, that must be, how do you know who you can trust?
Well, I mean, we don't really, most of our information is coming from officials, and whenever they say something, it's like, okay, that is who we can trust.
And we attribute to them, it's on them.
You make sure you always tell the viewer where you got that information so they know where we got it.
Yeah.
And, we're very careful about that. And that is on us, to the producers, to kind of make sure that is. And we read all the scripts before the reporters and everybody go out there. Like, I do the 5 p.m. newscast. That is my duty, to make sure that everything that is in that show is good to go on air. And so that is a responsibility for the producers, that they kind of have to carry that and make sure, even if, the reporters come back, we have to be like, no, where did this come from? And just making sure that we're all good to go. And that's part of our job, is to make sure that and just check on
So
that.
You're the journalistic check and balance, basically, to the raw data that comes in. Of course, we're hearing information on the scanner, as you mentioned, social media, the press releases, and then but breaking news too. Something blows up. We send everybody out there. Now we're scrambling to get valid information on the air. Sometimes it's not right. We have to retract, because in the heat of the moment. And that has to be very, very, scary.
Yes, and there are certain things that we know to ask when, like a reporter, we trust our crews. When they go out there, we trust that when they say, hey, the police say this happened, and we're like, okay, then we always make sure. No, you say sheriff's office, police, so we always make sure to check and double check that where our sources are coming from. And it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I love doing it, though.
Tell me a good story. What's something that happened one day? You came in to produce what you thought was going to be a normal show, and it turned into...
There's so many of those.
I know.
There's so many
every
of
week.
those, but I don't even...
Well, let's talk about, Friday the 13th. That all happened during the news. And for those that don't remember, we had like 6 inches of rain here on the west side. We had major flooding, flash flooding, that just happened. And so here we're going along with the newscast. We were expecting some thunderstorms, and now we've got, 4 feet of water and cars floating down St. Joe Avenue.
Yeah.
So how do you then, in the midst of things, how do you change gears and say, oh, we got to go cover the flooding?
That was a weird day because I had just happened to look. We heard it raining here, and I was like, "That's going on an awful long time." You can hear whenever the rain. Everybody like
we can hear it in here.
We can hear all of it in
tin
here,
roof.
and it's like we're like, "This is going on for a long time." And I just happened to look up at the Skycam that's in the newsroom out there, and I just saw this weird looking cloud, and it was the Skycam on our building here. Facing the west side, and I'm like, that looks weird. And it ended up being, I don't know, it was like I don't know. Because it had,
road.
Yeah.
I was mowing my lawn and then got in the shower. I had no idea there was a tornado that went over my house until I read about it or saw it on the news.
And then, because I have a lot of, obviously, I'm on the west side. All of my friends on Facebook are also from the west side, and they're like, that was weird. A big bunch of wind came through. And that's when I was kind of like, this is not normal. And then, we just kept seeing the rain, and we were looking at the pictures that were coming in, and we're like, these roads don't normally flood like this. And so in that moment, I saw that we were going on, it was maybe 30 minutes before we were going on at 5. And, we had a couple reporters here. They were doing different stories, but at that point, that's kind of our call. That's what we're doing. We need to cover the news as it's happening right now. So we pulled those 2 reporters off of their stories. We still aired those stories that they did, but we put them in a different format. And the reporters went out. It was like, these 2 roads are flooded. Ray Becker.
Yes.
That always floods first.
The great one. Yeah, that's like our bellwether. If that thing's flooded, then okay, we got some rain.
Yeah. So we went, they headed out, and I was making sure I was telling the TMP people back here, our directors, hey, I'm changing this. We're getting live shots. And so at that point, Rob and Jamie are back in the newsroom also. I was like, help me write this. And so that's how we can quickly change like that. It's on the spur of the moment, the producer has to be the one to jump in the action and be like, let's go do this. And then,
you're like a coach. You're calling the shots,
and kind of,
and not that Jamie and Rob don't help write.
No,
they do some writing and
totally
stuff too, but it ultimately falls on you as a producer of record.
And that's kind of what the anchors and the producers work together in that sense to get all of the stories. And because they're in there too with the producers all day, kind of doing that, looking at scripts, and when the producer's busy, the anchor's looking at it, and they're approving things. And so they're just as much as writing a lot of that as we are, because that's kind of what they do when they're back in the newsroom.
So how do you define news? What do you think news is? That's the age-old question. Every newsroom I've ever worked in, at some point, everybody sits around and says, well, why is this news? And some days it is, some days it's not.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on the day, but do you have, is it one of those, if you know it, if you see it, you'll know it kind of thing? Or do you have
and I will say that a lot of people, are like, oh, are you ever going to want to go move to a bigger market, do this? And I'm like, this is my home. This is the reason why this news is important to me is because it's my home. It's my hometown. It's my home area. And so I just want to make sure we're getting our viewers the news that they need, to be safe and aware of what's happening in their area. Yeah.
I noticed, at least in my time here, which is a lot longer than your time here, coming up on 40 years, it's mainly been women who have produced here. Almost, not without exception. Of course, we've had several men that have produced too, but it primarily is women. Would you agree with that? Do you think that's a valid observation?
Yeah.
That it tends to be maybe 70% women, 30% men over time that produce.
Yeah.
Do you think there's anything about women that make them perhaps temperamentally or organizationally better producers than a man, or is this just a silly question to even ponder?
This is not scientifically backed.
Of course not. This is inside look. No beakers, no lab coats back here.
producing is just paying attention to the tiny details. There are so many details that go into one newscast that you can't let them get away from you. And I'm not saying that women are better at those finer details, but like that's what it takes. It takes you have to be constantly thinking about what is next and where we're going with what we're doing in the news, and just that's what a good producer does, is just to oversee all of that.
And our audience is primarily women. I mean, in some of the research that I don't know if we can talk about that, but I don't think it's top secret. A lot of women watch the news, maybe more so than men. So do you think that's an advantage, having women producing the news for women? Not necessarily for women, you're producing the news, but I wonder if that's part of it. I don't know. We've been, taken to consultants and top secret meetings, and I'm sure they've indoctrinated us in some way about reaching women versus men. But and then my other question, and again, as a producer, you're in a much better position to answer this, but we get a lot more email now maybe than we did 10, 15 years ago. Well, it's biased. You're biased. I get that stuff, that I'm biased this way or that way. And we try not to be, but there's always a perception, whatever you're reporting, that you're either for or against or whatever. How do you, where does that weigh when you're doing your work? I mean, clearly, we don't have an agenda here. It's not like, we're going to pull one over on the tri-state. You're just trying to get the factual information out there. So does that frustrate you when people call bias, well, you didn't talk to so-and-so. Well, so-and-so wasn't around. Yes,
and because it gets tricky. It really does, but that's what we're here for, is to try and get both sides. And we discuss that a lot during a story. We're like, do you think this is too one-sided? We need to go this way.
How do you balance?
Yes, we need someone on this side. We need this. And that's something that we are constantly having a conversation about. And it's tricky. I won't lie.
Oh no, I didn't expect it. I know it's tricky. I see it. I do it too.
And that's the thing that we the producers are also kind of, that's kind of up to them to make sure, hey, we need to do this side of this, as we've got this side, we need this.
I think my frustration is that it's the perception on the other end. Factually, you can say, well, look, we did 3 minutes of viewpoint A, we did 3 minutes of viewpoint B, and now viewpoint A might have had a louder, more energetic person, and viewpoint B might have had, kind of a duddy person, and therefore A came off better. I mean, but sometimes we're at the mercy of who you can get, and what the story is.
And there are times where it's like we have, actual sound bites with these people, but we couldn't get the other side on camera, but they sent us this statement. So it's like we have both sides in there. We know we've said what they said.
Right.
It was a different format.
But the perception is,
it's like, well, we didn't see their face. And I'm like, well, we had we also had their opinion on it. So that's where, I think a lot of that can kind of come from probably. But and I try not to, whenever I see emails or whatever, like your original question, I'll look at them and I'll look back at our script, and I'm like, oh, we're good there. I think we're good there. Like with each side and everything. And we do read those.
Yeah,
we do.
And answer them. A lot of them go answered. I try to answer emails, critical ones, all emails that are directed at me. And it's interesting. Sometimes just simply responding to an email and saying, I understand your feeling, but here's what we did, and I feel like, they'll appreciate it. You'll always get the troll. There's always a few trolls. No matter what you do, if I interrupt Wheel of Fortune with a tornado warning, they're still going to be mad. But with news, it's much, much different because, I think everybody, as my folks used to say, it all depends on whose ox is getting gored, right? So you got to take it that way. So you said earlier that you like being here in your hometown, telling your people your news and everything. That's great. How long have you been here at 14? I didn't ask that question. As a producer then. So is this about 10?
As a producer?
Yeah.
No.
No, it'd be more than
12.
12 years.
12,
you said 20. Yeah. Okay.
20. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Whatever it was.
That was a while ago.
Oh, you get some sort of gift then after 10 years. I'm not sure what it is. I think you get the parking space out front.
Yes. Finally.
Yeah.
No. Well, I did, because I started. I think I'm at the magic number of 14 now. That's how many years I've been here.
14 years
Yeah.
at 14.
Yeah.
Well, there.
Yeah.
I think what
Magic.
better way to celebrate that than with an appearance
Yeah.
here on Inside Look. Did I not ask you a question that you wanted to expand upon
I don't think so.
or expound upon? What is it? Expand or expound? That's the other thing. You have to spell check and
Yeah.
come up with the right words
Make
for
sure
everybody.
it makes sense.
Right, heard on the rest of us. That's right. Well, I appreciate you coming on Inside Look. I know you were a little nervous to do it because
Yes.
typically you're like the wizard, pay it no attention to that lady behind the curtain.
Yes,
But
yes, and
but
if you ever see me, things are changing or going awry.
well, that we rarely see each other. Wait, this is probably the longest I've ever talked to you. Usually it's just over the headset. I got 3 minutes, okay, or a little joke here and there.
Yeah.
Or I'll ask if you had so-and-so at Wrights. And, of course,
Yeah.
you didn't because they're all retired or dead, but that I had. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
that's a thing. So nothing else then?
Nope.
You're going to give me the wrap? That's what
Wrap
you
it up,
do
Jeff.
in the
It's too long.
producer business. All right.
This is too
Kara
long.
Mattingly, 14 News producer. Thanks for coming on Inside Look with
Thanks.
us today. If you'd like to hear Kara's actually, this was the full. If you got to this point, you heard the whole thing. But if you want to hear the rest of our podcast, you can do that wherever you're listening to this one, or you can watch on the 14 News YouTube channel. Thanks so much for joining Inside Look. I'm Jeff Lyons.